You know, when I dreamed about my wedding day, I pictured laughter, family, love, and memories that would last a lifetime. But what I actually got was betrayal, humiliation, and a lesson that cut deeper than I ever imagined. My name is Claire, and this is not just the story of my wedding. This is the story of my revenge. It was supposed to be perfect. The flowers had arrived on time, the dress fit like a dream, and my fiancé Daniel was waiting for me at the altar. I thought, for once in my life, everything was going right. My parents had promised me this day would be unforgettable, that they were proud of me, that they would stand beside me no matter what. But they lied. When the music started, when the guests were seated and everyone turned to see me walk down the aisle, my parents weren't there. Their seats, the front row where they were supposed to sit with tears of joy, were empty. At first, I thought maybe there was traffic, maybe something happened at home, maybe they were just running late. But then, a distant cousin slipped me a note. It was short, almost cruel in how little it said. "We've gone to Hawaii. Couldn't stay. Enjoy the gift." Mom and Dad, my knees nearly buckled under me. My parents, my own flesh and blood, had boarded a plane to paradise while I stood there, about to marry the love of my life. The whispers started instantly. Guests craning their necks, murmuring, "Where are her parents? Why would they leave?" I felt every stare, every judgmental glance cut into me like a knife. And then the anger came. Not just humiliation, rage. Because this wasn't an accident. This wasn't bad luck. This was planned. My parents had chosen to humiliate me on the most important day of my life. I didn't know it then, but the so-called gift they left behind wasn't just an insult. It was a key that would unlock the truth about my family, and a fire inside me that would fuel the most unforgettable revenge they never saw coming. So sit with me and listen closely, because the deeper this story goes, the darker it gets. And trust me, you won't believe how it ends. When I tell you, I wanted to run out of that church and never look back. I mean it. But I couldn't. Hundreds of eyes were locked on me, waiting for me to explain, waiting for me to perform like some kind of tragedy they could gossip about later. Daniel, my fiancé, squeezed my hand, whispering, "It's okay, Claire. We'll get through this." But even his voice sounded shaky, because he knew, everyone knew, this wasn't just a no-show. This was abandonment. The whispers grew louder. Didn't her parents pay for the wedding? Maybe they don't. Approve of Daniel? Imagine choosing a vacation over your daughter's wedding. Each word was a dagger. The priest cleared his throat, trying to regain order. But I could feel it. The pity, the judgment. My parents had reduced me to a spectacle. And then, as if to rub salt into the wound, the gift was brought forward. A large, beautifully wrapped box placed carefully on the gift table with a tag that read, "For Claire and Daniel, enjoy Hawaii without us." It was almost mocking. Daniel tried to calm me, saying, "Maybe it's something nice, Claire. Maybe they just..." He stopped mid-sentence because he knew nothing could excuse what they'd done. I forced myself through the ceremony, but my smile was painted on, my vows shaky, my mind elsewhere. Every photograph from that day captured not joy, but humiliation. A bride abandoned by her own parents. When the reception started, the box sat there like a curse. People circled it, whispering, speculating, daring me to open it in front of everyone. My hands trembled as I finally untied the ribbon. Inside was a neatly folded envelope. My heart raced as I tore it open. The letter inside was short, too short. It said, "We did what we had to. You'll understand soon. Mom and Dad." No love, no apology, just cold. The guests gasped. Some shook their heads. Daniel's mother pulled me aside, whispering, "Sweetheart, your parents, they've shamed you." And she was right. I smiled politely through the rest of the night. But inside, I was shattered. My parents had walked out on me, on my wedding, on my future. And all they left me with was a cryptic note and a promise that I'd understand soon. But what they didn't know was this. I wasn't going to sit around and wait for answers. I was going to find them. And when I did, I was going to make them regret every second of their little Hawaiian escape. That night was the end of me being the obedient daughter. It was the beginning of something else entirely. It was the birth of my revenge. That night, after the last guest left and Daniel finally fell asleep beside me, I sat alone in my wedding dress, staring at that letter. My hands shook as I read the words over and over again. We did what we had to. You'll understand soon. Understand what? That they had abandoned me? That they had humiliated me in front of everyone I loved? No. There had to be more. At the bottom of the box, I noticed something I hadn't before. A small velvet pouch. Inside was a single key. Old, heavy, with a number etched on it. 47B. My heart skipped. A safe deposit box? A storage unit? What were they hiding? I wanted to wait until morning, but sleep was impossible. My mind was burning with questions. So at sunrise, still in the haze of heartbreak, I drove straight to the address scribbled on a card tucked inside the pouch. It led me to a nondescript storage facility on the edge of town. The man at the desk barely looked at me. He checked the number and handed me a clipboard. Sign here. My hands shook as I slid the key into the lock of Unit 47B. With another family, a man, a woman, 2 kids. And there, written in my father's handwriting on the back, our real family. My knees nearly gave out. Real family? What did that even mean? I ripped through the folders, my breath shallow, heart pounding. Bank accounts, property deeds, secret investments, even love letters. Between my father and that woman, every paper screamed the same truth. My parents weren't just vacationing in Hawaii. They were escaping me. The wedding wasn't inconvenient for them. It was the perfect distraction. While the world's eyes were on me, they were already gone, living their second life. And that's when I realized the humiliation wasn't the gift. The truth was, they wanted me to discover it, to know that I wasn't their priority, that they had another life, another family, another love. I remember standing in that storage unit, my whole body trembling. For years, I'd sacrificed everything to please them. I worked hard, studied what they wanted, dressed the way they approved, even dated men they liked before Daniel. And for what? To be discarded like a mistake. But here's the thing about betrayal. It does something to you. It hardens you. It sharpens you. As I slammed that door shut, I promised myself something. I wouldn't cry. Not anymore. I would use their lies, their secrets, their real family against them. Because if my parents wanted to start over in paradise, then I was going to turn their paradise into hell. And that was the moment my revenge truly began. When I left that storage unit, I thought I'd already seen the worst. The photos, the bank accounts, the so-called real family. But the truth? That was just the surface. I took the documents home and locked myself in the bedroom. Daniel knocked a few times, worried, but I told him I needed space. I didn't want pity. I wanted clarity. I wanted weapons. One by one, I combed through every folder. Hidden bank accounts in the Cayman Islands, a property deed for a villa in Maui, credit cards under fake names, and then something that nearly made me drop the papers. A marriage certificate. My father married that woman, legally, years ago, which meant every birthday they spent with me, every anniversary with my mom, it had all been a lie, and it didn't stop there. I found receipts for school tuition, expensive gifts, luxury, vacations, all for the other children, my siblings I never knew existed. While I was told, we can't afford that dress, or we need to save money for the future, my parents were showering another family with everything I had begged for as a child. Do you understand what that does to someone? To realize your entire life has been second place to people you didn't even know existed? I wanted to scream. I wanted to burn every page, every photo. But then I realized something. These papers weren't just proof. They were power. If I played my cards, right? I could destroy them. Financially, socially, emotionally, every secret they had worked so hard to protect was now in my hands. But revenge, real revenge, isn't rushed. It's crafted. And I wasn't going to waste this chance by being sloppy, so I started small. I copied the documents. Every last one. I hid the originals somewhere even Daniel didn't know. Because as much as I loved him, I couldn't trust anyone. Not yet. Then I started making calls. Quiet ones. To lawyers, to journalists, to people who knew how to dig deeper than I could. And that's when I uncovered the final knife to the back. My parents hadn't just left me on my wedding day. They had planned it. Every detail. The tickets to Hawaii had been bought 6 months earlier. The villa already rented. The other family already settled in. My wedding wasn't a celebration to them. It was a cover-up. While I was walking down the aisle in front of my guests, they were boarding a first-class flight with champagne in their hands. Smiling, laughing, free. That was the moment my heartbreak turned into something else. Something darker. Hatred. But not blind hatred. Focused. Sharp. The kind of hatred that doesn't just burn, it builds. And in that moment, I swore on the ruins of my wedding day, I would tear apart everything they built. Their money. Their reputation. Their shiny little real family. They thought they could bury me with humiliation. But I was going to rise. And when I did, they were going to wish they had never left that gift. Because their gift became my weapon. People say grief has stages. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. But betrayal? Betrayal has only two. The pain and the payback. And I was done with pain. For days after the wedding, I played the role of the devastated bride, crying in bed, ignoring calls, letting people believe I was too broken to function. Even Daniel thought I was lost in sorrow. But inside, I was wide awake, calculating. Revenge isn't just about striking back, it's about timing. If you move too soon, you look desperate. Too late, and they've already won. I needed to strike when they least expected it, when they thought their paradise was safe. So I started small. I hired a private investigator, someone who owed a favor to a friend of mine. Within a week, I had daily updates. Photos of my parents lounging on the beach in Maui, sipping cocktails with their real family. My father kissing his other wife openly, laughing like he had. Every photo felt like gasoline on my fire. But I didn't react. Not yet. Instead, I began studying their weaknesses. The bank accounts, hidden, but not untouchable. I sent copies of the documents anonymously to federal tax authorities. If there was fraud, and trust me, there was, they'd find it. The businesses my father secretly invested in, I leaked records of shady deals to his business partners. Within weeks, rumors started spreading. Investors pulled out, stocks dipped, but that was just the beginning. The real revenge wasn't financial, it was personal. I wanted them to feel what I felt on my wedding day: humiliated, exposed, stripped of dignity in front of everyone they knew. So I planned a performance. I contacted the woman my father was married to, his other wife, but not directly. No, that would be too easy. Instead, I slipped pieces of the truth into her world. Copies of bank statements showing he was still legally tied to my mother. Photos of him in family events with us. Letters he had written my mom, promising her things he clearly didn't mean. At first, she ignored them. But then the seeds of doubt started to sprout. And when doubt enters a marriage, it grows fast. Meanwhile, I stayed silent. On the surface, I was the grieving daughter. But underneath, I was pulling strings, weaving a web so tight they wouldn't even see it until it snapped shut. You know, people think revenge is about anger. It's not. It's about patience. And I had all the patience in the world, because every sunset they watched in Hawaii, every drink they sipped, every laugh they shared, was one step closer to the day I was going to burn their little paradise to ash. When I decided to take revenge, I knew one thing. It couldn't be messy. Messy revenge is loud, chaotic, and forgettable. But strategic revenge, that's unforgettable. That's the kind of story people whisper about for years. And I was writing that story. Page by page, the investigator fed me more than just pictures now. He dug into phone records, hotel bookings, credit card charges. My parents weren't just living a second life. They were flaunting it. Expensive dinners, shopping sprees, parties, all while their abandoned daughter was left behind to pick up the broken pieces. Perfect. The first domino I tipped was financial. Remember those secret accounts? Well, I didn't just report them to the tax authorities. I made sure the information found its way into the hands of journalists who loved scandal. Within weeks, whispers began spreading in the financial community. My father's clean reputation started to crack. The second domino was personal. I kept feeding small doses of truth to the other woman. I sent her pictures of my parents together just a year before. I mailed her copies of my father's legal marriage certificate to my mother. I even had someone accidentally leave a message on her voicemail, a recording of my father calling my mother the only woman I've ever truly loved. It was a lie, of course, but lies mixed with truth, that's poison. And the third domino was social. I planned a reunion. Not just any reunion, a grand anniversary party in our hometown. Except, my parents didn't know it was me who arranged it. Invitations went out in their names, celebrating 30 years of love and family. Old friends, colleagues, extended relatives, everyone who thought they knew my parents was thrilled to attend. I knew they couldn't resist. Their pride wouldn't let them ignore such an event, especially with their shiny new family on display. Meanwhile, I worked. Behind the scenes, renting the hall, preparing the guest list, making sure the right people were in the room, and most importantly, curating the perfect presentation. Because what better stage for revenge than a party where everyone believes they're celebrating you? And oh, the irony, while they sipped champagne in Hawaii, smiling at their little victory, I was building the trap that would turn their entire world upside down. By the time the party day arrived, every domino was in place. All I had to do was push. The night of the anniversary party, I felt like a bride again. Except this time, I wasn't walking into humiliation. I was walking into victory. The hall glittered with lights, tables draped in white linen, champagne on ice, music soft in the background. Guests poured in, former neighbors, business partners, old friends who hadn't seen my parents in years. Everyone buzzing about how sweet it was that they were celebrating 30 years of marriage. Sweet, if only they knew. And then, they arrived. My parents walked in arm in arm, tanned from Hawaii, grinning like royalty. And beside them, their other family. My father's second wife, her smug smile plastered on her face, and their two kids, dressed like they belonged on a magazine cover. Gasps rippled through the room. Whispers followed, but my parents didn't flinch. They thought they were admired, envied. I gave them that moment. I let them bask in the illusion of control, because I knew, in minutes, it would all collapse. Dinner passed. Toasts were made. My parents raised their glasses. My father booming to family, the greatest gift in life. That was my cue. I stepped onto the stage, microphone in hand. The room quieted. Every eye turned to me. My mother's smile faltered. My father stiffened. "Good evening, everyone," I began, voice calm but loud enough to cut through the silence. "I'm Claire, the daughter they left behind." Gasps, murmurs. My parents shifted uncomfortably, but I didn't let them interrupt. "I want to thank you all for being here tonight," I continued, "because what you're about to see is the truth. The truth they tried to hide while they played house in Hawaii." I clicked the remote in my hand. The projector behind me flickered to life. And then, slide by slide, their secrets spilled out for everyone to see. Photos of my father with his second wife, dated years back. Bank statements proving money siphoned into secret accounts. See a copy of the marriage certificate to the other woman, dated while he was still married to my mother. Even letters they had written, dripping with betrayal. Gasps turned to outrage, faces twisted in shock. My mother buried her face in her hands. My father shouted, "Turn it off, this isn't true!" But the evidence was undeniable. The final slide appeared, a photo of me in my wedding dress, standing in front of 2 empty seats reserved for my parents. I looked straight at them, my voice steady. On the day I needed you most, you abandoned me. But tonight, I give you a gift in return. Your truth. For everyone to see. The room erupted. Guests whispered, shouted, some even stormed out. My father's business partners glared, their reputations now tied to a fraud. His second wife turned on him, slapping the papers out of his hand. The kids looked horrified, confused, betrayed themselves, and my parents, they stood frozen. Their empire of lies crumbling in real time. I stepped down from the stage, my heels clicking against the floor, my head held high. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the one humiliated. They were. And oh, how sweet that first taste of revenge was. The party ended in chaos. My parents tried to save face, but it was useless. Their friends turned their backs. Business partners stormed out. The second wife, humiliated in front of everyone, dragged her children out, screaming at my father the entire way. By the time the hall emptied, my parents stood alone in the wreckage of their own lies. For me, it should have been enough. But revenge, once it starts, doesn't just stop. It grows. It wants more. Over the next few weeks, the fallout spread like wildfire. Journalists picked up the story. Headlines screamed, "Local businessman caught. Living double life." The tax authorities swooped in, freezing accounts. Properties were seized. Their perfect Maui villa, gone. Their bank accounts, empty. My father tried to fight back. Lawyers, statements, lies piled on lies. But every time he opened his mouth, another truth surfaced. And I made sure of it, because I still had one final card to play. Remember that storage unit? Buried deep. In those folders was a document my father probably hoped I'd never find. A contract, illegal, fraudulent, tying him to a business deal that crossed the line into criminal territory. I could have taken it to the police immediately, but I waited. I waited until he was already on his knees. One morning, as they sat in their now half-empty home, I walked in. For the first time in months, I stood face to face with them. My mother looked hollow. My father, defeated. I placed the document on the table between us. "This," I said, "is enough to put you away for years." My father's voice cracked. "Claire, please, we're still your parents." I laughed. A cold, bitter laugh that didn't even sound like me anymore. Parents. Parents don't abandon their child on her wedding day. Parents don't build a second family in secret. Parents don't humiliate and discard their own blood like trash. They begged, they cried. But I didn't flinch. I leaned in, lowering my voice. "I could destroy you completely. But prison, that's too easy. No. You'll live with this. You'll live with nothing. No money, no reputation, no family, just each other, and the wreckage of what you built." And with that, I walked out. Days later, the documents were anonymously leaked anyway. Not to the police, to the press. Enough to ruin them socially, but not enough to lock them away. No, I wanted them free. Free to suffer. Free to know the world saw them for what they were. Daniel stood by me through it all. He was my anchor when the storm threatened to pull me under. And slowly, we built something new. Not from their money, not from their lies, but from our own strength. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that wedding day, about the empty seats, about the note they left behind, and I realize it was the best gift they could have ever given me. Because without their betrayal, I never would have found my true power. So, to my parents, thank you. Thank you for leaving me on my wedding day. You gave me the one thing I never thought I'd have, the perfect revenge.